So he said a lot
He
in
did.
that clip. He said a lot in that clip. What's your thoughts?
I was just gonna say, like, you know, his livelihood that he was brought up, that's like 25% of the population. You know, we all had some kind of ghetto-ness growing up or poorness, because I was raised up poor too. So we all had some of that aspect which we all can feel. So I understand him on that. And like he said, being a parent, it's tough. You know, people do lie. So he just said a lot to dissect, but I get where he's coming from, because, nobody helps when you're down. Everybody just want to stay in one spot and don't want to grow. But when you want to grow, you got people pulling you left and right. You're like, damn, I'm just trying to get to the damn top, and y'all just dragging my ass down. The mother,
Right.
it be like that. But I get it. I get where he's coming from. I felt it. I had goosebumps and everything when I was watching it, because I was like, that sound about, some of the stuff sound about mine. You know what I mean? It's my son. Like, damn, I feel you, bro. And like, and not seeing his kid, I'm like, damn, I'm trying to get my kids to go see his father. So like, not all women are like that, but I understand where he's coming from. There are some women that are that way. And I'm like, damn, I've been all my life. Come get your son. Come get him. Come. No. I just want you to turn into baby.
Yeah.
But it's sad though that moms and dads do that to the kids, because that's not fair. Like you said, kids don't know anything until you tell them. So I don't feel like any parent, regardless of what situation you're going through, you should never put the child in the middle of any situation of an adult conversation, because they don't know no better. They're innocent, and you're just robbing them of their innocence. You're supposed to protect them. They didn't ask to be here. You could have wrapped it up. You get what I'm saying? Like, we got to do better in that aspect, because that's not fair. You have a lot of missing dads, a lot of missing moms. That's not fair to the kid. No kid should be raised with just one parent, because it took two last time I knew.
Right.
That's what I thought. But some people are like going to donate. I mean, the donate firms, and have kids different ways. But, if you have it like with two people, I truly feel two people should take care of the kid, regardless of what you're going through. I don't care if you don't like me or not. You still gonna help. You brought him into this world, you can help too. But it's not like that, and I feel him. Like, I feel all his pain.
No matter how much I don't like you, we gotta still take care of the kid.
Yeah.
Co-parent. What's your thoughts, Kay?
I mean, I think that sounds great.
He agrees.
I think, I don't know, it's a little mixed, because not everybody is the same.
Right.
Has the same experiences. I do believe that you shouldn't talk bad about the other parent, whether or not they're in their person's life or not.
Right.
Because there should be a time where if they decide that they do want to be a part of it, there's no bias. That's the part where I'm at. So, but I do believe that there are so many different situations, and you can't necessarily categorize, just like how people say, some people say blacks are a certain way, or Latinos you can't categorize men and women the same. We should not be categorizing them that way, because there's always exceptions to the rule. There's always going to be a different perspective based on everything that goes on in that person's life. So some things I agree with him, others I don't necessarily agree.
Yeah, same. So I agree with you on that. I don't talk bad about my son's mom in front of my son at all. Period. Especially if my son always asked me questions. I don't talk bad about her in front of him at all. 100% don't. I just tell some stories because he asked me questions about that. I tell why we broke up because he asked me questions about that. He asked me how old he was when we broke up. He said what year. I told him all that too. But I never talk bad about his mom in front of him, especially what's going on right now. Let that, he don't need to, Wait until he
They
gets
always
older.
find out later though in life.
Right,
So
exactly. So the thing is for me, because I dealt with it with my dad, right? I wanted to know his side of the story of, certain things. So my mom told me the story, but I wanted to hear from him as well. I wanted to hear his side of the story too. So I can because two things could be true at the same time, right?
right.
Two stories can line up together and it makes sense. So when my dad said the story of why he wasn't around, stuff like that, it made sense. I get why. And then that's why I guess you could say I wasn't mad anymore because I understand why, but it's still, he could, like, you know what I mean? Like,
He could have made the effort.
right, more effort, probably could have handled things a little bit differently. I look in those perspectives, but I wasn't mad anymore because I get why, but, we young parents, we're going to make bad decisions. And of course we may regret some of the decisions we make, but I understand from both sides of the story. And from both sides of the story, it aligned together pretty perfectly. So that's why I also believed him, because it aligned from what she was saying too,
Right.
which makes sense. So yeah, definitely don't talk bad about the parents. And of course, there's going to be mothers that gonna talk bad about the dad, especially if the dad's not around, because he said he wasn't around with some of his kids and stuff like that for a while. So it makes sense of why his kids feel away. And I would say maybe he need to put more effort, just maybe.
Right.
And that's probably why that he feels the way he feels from that.
Yeah, I didn't have my father around. My father, my mom left him when I was a kid, a baby, like 1 or 2. But I know my mom disappeared, but she didn't tell me the full story. But he never called, from my understanding, because I was young, so he never called or never tried to make it. I don't know the full story, but it was sad because, like, when I really wanted to find him, I was a little bit older. I was in my 20s or early 20s, and I was going through like social service, like, to help me find them, and you got to give all that information and blah blah blah. But come to find out, when I was doing all that, and it took me a while because the system is so messed up, that he passed away when I was 14. But I was in my 20s and I didn't know that. So when I heard that, I was like, I dropped in tears because I was searching for this man for a very long time. So that, like, literally broke my heart. But it sucks. It sucks not being in somebody's in life and you don't know why. Like, to this day, I still don't know why. You know.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. That's wow.
Yeah, but I did. I broke down everything. I was bawling. I'm like, man, I've been trying to find this man, because you always want to know who your dad was.
Yeah.
I never got to meet him. I don't remember him. I was just a baby. It's a lot. I don't remember when I was 5. So remembering when you're 1, 2 years old, that's tough. So I get where he's coming from. You feel a type of way, but I don't have 2 sides of the story. So I just have to deal with the one and still be in limbo. So I get it. It's frustrating. Some moms and it's both ways. Some dads lie too. It's not just the moms.
Right.
So it depends, like Kay said, on the situation. But still, regardless, I feel like no matter what, though, you should still always have some kind of contact or some kind of way to see your child. You truly love your child. That's how I feel, and that's my opinion. Because I'm like, that it don't make no sense to have one person raise them by yourself and go through so much struggle and hell, and you can't lift a finger. You can't send me a couple dollars. You can't call. You can't say happy birthday. But you was inside me though, and it felt great, didn't it? Like,
No
come on.
postcards, no
Because that's what I went through.
Yeah.
So, if people didn't go through what I went through, they're not going to understand. They're going to go a different side. But you got to go through those shoes and feel that pain, because you don't know. You never had a single parent. You never been one, so you can't criticize a single parent if you have both parents. And that's how I always fought with everybody, because I'm fighting with 2 couples and I'm one. You know what I mean? I'm a single parent. I'm fighting with a couple, and they're talking about it's hard. And I'm working for 2. You got a mom and dad there, and they working out. It's just me, myself, and I gotta be the mom and dad. So don't sit here and tell me it's hard. I get it is. It's hard, but it's 10 times harder for a single parent, regardless who you are, mom, dad, uncle, single parent. It's hard for any single parent because you don't get that help all the time.
Yeah. That's why kids need their fathers in their lives. It's very important, especially if it's like a boy. He needs to learn how to be a man from his father. It's harder.
Right.
I know it could be harder for their mom to teach them because
It is.
only the mom
That's
could
the
teach the
voice.
kid from their perspective.
One thing is though, like, what if the father passed away?
That,
Say it again.
Father passed away.
it's good to have
So
father figures
Yeah.
also.
So, and I was just going to say,
Yeah.
so you can't just always just look to the father. There may be other people that are placed in that child's life that
Oh, of
they,
course. But at the top of the line, if the father's alive, the father should be there
I
Right.
without a
agree.
shadow of a doubt.
I
You
agree.
know, it's good to have father figures and mother figures because I
Yeah.
have those growing up.
Me too.
So I get it, but
Yeah.
still be there.
I think that sometimes people, they look at a person, they say that they're a single parent, not really knowing the background. Maybe
Right.
that's no longer there because they're not alive. So
Right.
some here,
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
Different circumstances.
oh, you know, she's just a single mother, but you don't know people don't always know what the background is.
Right. Or what
Right.
they have to go through to survive. Like he said, his mama had to do that, this, just to make, food on the table. You have Christmas. My mom did the same thing. She had 7 of us, single parent. She had to make it work. And she did it. Same thing. My kids never saw anything bad. I mean, they see me crying and stressed, but overall, they're alive. They had the necessities. They didn't have anything extra, but I can do it now. But at the time, I didn't have the resource or the money at that time. So it made it hard, but it's wild. It's a sensitive subject, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I actually went on a date in the past with 2 widows, and they told me about their life and stuff and how their husbands passed away, and I was like, wow, they had to raise the kids themselves. Like now they did have father figures like uncles and programs they was in and stuff like that, but they had both of them had like 6 kids, 7 kids, and they had to raise them by themselves because their dad passed away. And I'm like, wow. So I really commend them from doing it, holding it down for so long, from them being widows for a long time. It was interesting perspective on why listen from them.
But it takes a community, though, too, to be honest. Like, it really does. It takes a community to help. And when you don't have it, it makes it even harder because you don't have that community to back you up. So it's going to make you feel some type of way and see things differently. But overall, it's sad either way, like not having a mom or dad it's tough.
Yeah.
And then to find out your mama lied about it or your dad lied about it, I'd be upset too, mother. All these times I've always told my kids the truth, but I never lie. I don't say it. There's always ways to say it to your kids without lying. I don't feel like any parent should lie or why their parent's not there. There's ways to say it without actually saying it, without actually lying. You don't have to say, "Oh, your father." You don't have to do that. He's not here right now. Da, da, da. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to go in detail.
And I don't with my son. He asked me a question. I try not to go in detail because he don't need to know the details. Right. And I explain to him, but I don't tell him nothing negative about the situations at all. I just tell him what he asked me, and that's it. Now when he get older, he's probably gonna want to do some details, but I'm gonna tell him I'm gonna tell him it is what it is. It happins. So you don't need to go that route. My
21-year-old did that. As he got older, he asked me about his father and why, and I had to tell him, but he cried. We all cried. I'm like,
yeah. The thing is, I don't want my son to go the same route that I may have took when I was in my 20s. Right? I want him to learn from past, so that way he can take a different approach. If that makes sense.
What's your thoughts, Kay?
Like I said before, I think every situation is so different, and everyone's background and experiences, that come with it. I have a lot of different perspectives based on that. So, like I said, I don't think no one should talk about negatively about a parent, even if they were the worst parent or they didn't do all the things that they were supposed to do. I think it's still not in the best interest to to be negative about that parent, because if they are, you know, years down the line when they meet up with them, you don't want them to have that bias.
Right.
You don't want them to have either the mother's bias or the father's bias. You want them to be able to develop the relationship um, as it is at that point. So,
Right.
and I feel that way about a lot of things. I know because I'm in the dating mode right now, and I know sometimes I may meet someone and they want to tell me every single thing about their ex-partners that, you know, negative things, even their kids' mothers. And I say, I don't want to hear that,
Right.
because if I were to meet her, I don't want that to be, in the back of my mind, all the different things she did to you. That has nothing to do with me.
Right.
So I want it to be a fresh perspective from that moment. So I think you sabotage when you try to um, give that give the child or give that person a different perspective that only you may have. That
Right.
person may have been that way because of the way that you were with them.
Hmm.
So,
So you
Right.
call that red flags from a guy
uh,
telling something
I mean,
about.
sometimes it's a matter of just some people just, they want to get their side out,
Mm.
and they want you to understand why they are the way they are in the position that they're at right now. And my thing is, I don't need to understand that, because I'm going to get to know you the way that I'm going to get to know you. And then I may see some red flags. So,
Well, makes sense.